Hello and welcome to the Red Room. Our guest today is Uri Kurlianchik. Welcome, Uri.
Hey, how you
How
doing?
are you?
Hello, welcome.
I'm great.
So, Uri is a role-playing game designer and a writer from Israel. I'm not sure if you are really from Israel, but you are living there, right?
I was born in Moscow, but yes, I live in Israel.
So, there's a game almost ready to be released, which is called Rats, and we'll start by talking about that. So, what can you tell us?
Okay, so the basic idea of the game is that one day, one rat suddenly gains sentience. He learns how to talk, he learns how to read, and he develops this crazy theory that rats, they were the original dominant species of the planet. They invented all the technology, all the art, all the language, and the evil humans stole it and erased all of rats' history. And he organizes all the other rats into these tribes, which have to wage a holy war against humanity and restore rats' holy place. The problem is that rats are still rats. They mostly fight each other. They mostly steal from each other. They mostly disagree about tiny, tiny details of what the original rat, whose name is EE, taught him. So in this game, the players take on the roles of these rats. We don't have classes in this game. You just choose your species, which has very small effect on the game. You choose your culture, which is the most important thing, and otherwise you build your character by choosing, like in many games, skills, talents, and so forth. I think what the unique part about the mechanics is what I call mutations and mutilations. There are no hit points in this game. Every time you're damaged, you just take some kind of mutilation. Very few of those are fatal. It's actually quite difficult to get killed in this game. You just gather more and more different mutilations, which affect gameplay. And also, various things may cause you to get mutations because you're mutant rats. What's the point of being a rat if you're not a mutant rat? And if you roll a mutation which corresponds with some mutilation, and the random tables in this book are huge. You have random tables with thousands of options. Then you get like an advanced mutation. And as you understand, it's kind of lighthearted, kind of a joke game. But actually, some of my playtesters took it like to very dark, very serious, very philosophical places, which I didn't intend to. But it's cool. As I said, like the PDF is ready. I hope to publish it next month. In regards to the print version, let us pray.
So the system is unique, or is a OSR
Yes,
or something?
it's a unique system. It's actually very simple. It's based on the D6. You count successes. The main thing about it, which is unique, is the idea of gathering mutilations and injuries as you go along, instead of just having hit points.
There are several other games that have rats as characters. Is there a why do you think?
Things.
Why is there a thing with rats and not just, well, maybe dogs or cats? But
Actually, the game started in a rather funny way. I was sitting in a friend's farm, and we had nothing to do. And he said, like, Uri, run a game for us. And I said, I don't even have dice. Like, I came here to, drink beer and, play with horses. And, suddenly you want me to run a game. He said, yeah, run a game for us. We're bored. And I just improvised out of the blue a game. And I ran for the guys and said, okay, that was very awesome. Like, do you have it written down somewhere? I said, no, I literally just came up with it. And it turned into a mini campaign, and from there we developed into a game. I was very lucky to meet two extremely talented artists who were kind of excited about the premise, and they provided some really terrific illustrations for this book, just because they liked the game. They are my partners. We ran an Indiegogo some time ago, which is like a Kickstarter for non-Americans. It was quite successful. The backers already got their book. It should be commercially available soon.
So this has been ready for 2 years? That's what you said?
Yes.
2 years. You have done other things, and I just, well, I know you have done at least one scenario for Tales of Gore, which I haven't played yet. Not the game, not the scenario, because I bought everything, but we haven't still had the time to start with it. I don't know what else you wrote, because I was searching on drive-through, but I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find even that one. I just knew that you had written it, but I couldn't search.
I wrote a couple of books for Traveler, the Mongoose version. They're both full of random tables. As you notice, it's kind of my thing. One is called the Campaign Guide, which you can basically roll a campaign, an entire campaign just through random dice. It was huge fun writing it. Sometimes I just roll random campaigns for fun and don't run them, just roll them. It's kind of what I like about Traveler. Just generating things is so much fun. The other book is called Robot. It's a guide to playing robot characters. I have also written many scenarios and articles. I wrote for Dungeon, for Dragon, for Science and Portents, for Interface Zero, which is a very cool cyberpunk game. I wrote a section about Russia and the Middle East. They asked me for some reason. And I also wrote two fiction books. One is called Tales from Israeli Storyteller, which is basically a fantasy guidebook to Israel. At the time, I was like hiking and traveling a lot, and each time we went to some cool place, would kind of come up with some fantasy scenario involving this place. So this book is a collection of 20 stories, each of which takes a real place, and it is very detailed in the book. Like if you go there, that is what you will find. But obviously the stories are fantastical. They have, ghouls, golems, talking animals, spirits, Ashmadai. It involves a lot of both Jewish and Islamic mythology. And my other book is called Noblesse Oblige. It's a science fiction novel, which also started as a joke. Most of the things I do in life start as a joke, it turns out. A friend and I, just throwing ideas at each other. And at some point, he said, "Okay, that was fun. I'm going to sleep." And I just continued piling on more and more ideas until I realized I had a novel. And luckily enough, Wordfire Press decided they want to publish it. So it's a thing that exists now.
When I looked at your novels, I thought that they could easily become role-playing game scenarios, which makes sense, of course, because you're role-play. Have you thought about adapting them to role-playing scenarios or games, maybe?
Yes, I have actually. Right now, I'm occupied with a. Yeah. That's actually not my cat. It's the neighbor's cat, but he likes to hang out when the neighbor is out.
I've heard about that. You are visited by many cats, right?
Yeah, less cats now because this guy doesn't like other cats. He wants to protect his investment. Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking about it. I have other projects right now I'm occupied with. I recently finished another novel, and I try to find a publisher for it. Yeah, someday.
So what do you prefer to do? To write novels or to write games? Or it's a hard question.
These days, I prefer to write novels because writing games is a lot of work. When you write a novel, you can just write whatever you want. But when you write a game, you need to think about balance, mechanics, if that will be fun to play, if that will be fun to run. So it's designing a game is like half writing and half engineering. I think I'm getting old for that.
So when did you start playing role-playing games?
I became aware of role-playing games when I was in the first grade. I don't know if I can call what we did back then playing, but We did pretend to be stuff, and we knew about dark elves, dwarves, gnomes. I actually started playing seriously with my friends when we were in the 4th grade, and never stopped since.
Was that in Israel already? Or?
Yes, when we were in the Soviet Union, we didn't know that there was such a thing as role-playing games. They didn't exactly encourage that.
You were born yet in yeah, of course, you're 30 something. So how are role-playing games in Israel? I know I'm not well. We have interviewed Omar Go. Yeah, he talked a little bit about it, but you like to hear your.
So a very interesting thing about role-playing games in Israel is that they are very common activity as an extracurricular activity in schools and community centers. So almost every school and every community center has a role-playing game class. And huge amounts of children play role-playing games in school, basically with a teacher, which is, by the way, it's my job as well. My day job, if you will. Although you should do it in the evening.
You're a teacher?
That's interesting.
I'm an instructor. I instruct role-playing games in schools and community centers.
We should have that in Portugal.
That's interesting, yeah.
Exactly, that is good.
So yeah, so that way you have a very strong base, and many of these kids, when they grow up, become serious gamers or even instructors themselves. We have several conventions. The biggest one is called Icon Convention in Tel Aviv. It has about 5,000 people daily. Obviously, we didn't have it for the last couple of years, but hopefully it will return. So I'd say it has a very vibrant role-playing game scene. And in my experience, most Israelis that don't play Dungeons and Dragons, they play all kinds of, really esoteric indie games. And if you say play Dungeons and Dragons, you're lame. You need to play this game that only 5 people have heard of, and it's like the best game ever.
So when did that instructor thing in school started? Not when you were a kid, I suppose.
No, it's newer. Although then you already had roots of it, but I became involved in it when I was in university. A friend with whom I haven't spoken for like a decade called me and said, "Would you like to make money playing D&D?" I said, "That sounds like a con. Are you a scammer now?" He said, "No, God, I swear it's real." I said, "Okay, I'll come to an interview." And I was amazed that that was actually a real job. And I've been working that for, I'd say some, that started 13 years.
Well, that's a lot. So you started making money from playing games before Critical Role and all those guys.
Yeah, long before.
Yeah. I suppose you make less money than they do.
Probably.
Very likely, yes.
But I have a house. I have a cat, so I can't complain.
More cats, right? You have cats that are not your own, even.
They come to visit.
Yeah. That's a good sign.
What about the industry, if you can call it an industry, role-playing games industry in Israel?
There are some Israeli games in Hebrew. There is a system which is like a very simplified Dungeons and Dragons, kind of an OSR without calling it OSR. I think it's called Wizards and Spells, something like that. Honestly, I don't know it very well. But I see it in bookstores, so it must be selling. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in bookstores. It looks nice. I haven't really tried it myself, but it looks cool. It's not really a vibrant industry, but it does exist. And remember, Israel is a tiny country. It's smaller than New Jersey. So you can't really have a big game industry here.
Yeah, comparatively. And what do you, so I'm curious, so what type of games do you run in your classes? It's whatever you want, or do you have like a curriculum?
For younger kids, I actually do have a curriculum because schools like curriculums. If you don't have a stack of papers this high, they won't even talk to you. For older kids, like the older the kids are, basically that's my philosophy. I say the younger you are, the more I'm the boss. I tell you what to do. The older you are, the more you are the boss. You tell me what to do. So with younger kids, I run simplified Dungeons and Dragons because a second grader can't really handle all the little details of the game. So I give them less spells, less options. But I do have all the classes, I do have all the races. And for older kids, I have ran a lot of different games. They really love Vampire. They really love Star Wars. The Age of the Empire system, because the cool thing about the system is that each roll is exciting. It's not binary. It's not like you succeed or fail. Each roll is kind of a small story. You can have success with a disadvantage, fail with advantage. You can have a triumph and a despair. So it really gives them a lot of room to interpret the rolls, and older kids love it. Because I've been doing it for 13 years, and I usually have around 10 groups per year. I've basically run everything I can think of. So specifically this year, I'm running Vampire, I'm running Against the Giants, I am running Dark Sun, I am running another Dark Sun, but higher level, so it's more challenging. I am running just generic, D&D for the young kids. Goblins stole your cow, get the cow back, defeat the goblins, get the ice cream. So really diverse.
So it's those kids go from second grade. That's what it says. Up to what?
Yes, I actually have one group which has kids which have been in my groups from 3rd grade to 11th grade.
So that's the end of high school.
The 12th grade, but usually by the time they reach the 12th grade, they have so much exams and tests, and they can't commit to groups anymore. So yeah. And there were cases when some kids, I snatched them after the army, and they worked with me. We also do birthday events. So I called them up, said, okay, you worked for me for 10 years. Now it's time that I pay you. So,
that's an interesting concept.
Yes, I'm fascinated by it. I think it's because I believe that role playings are a great way to not just make kids into gamers, but are really a good way for them to learn math,
yes,
to be more creative, to learn a lot of things. So
it also really helps them to think visually, and really encourages them to write, to create, to express themselves. Because like the whole thing about role-playing games is expressing yourselves and to debate in a cultured manner. Read maps. It's also a very important skill. I use very complicated maps in my games.
And working as a group, as a team, probably also. Yeah.
Well, second graders have a bit of a problem working as a group, so you need to really help them. Because it's like in the middle of a fight, what do? I look for treasure. You're in the middle of forest. Why do you think is there treasure here? I want to find treasure. Yes, but there is no treasure here. Maybe I'll roll a 20. Yes, but there is no treasure here. I gotta look for treasure. Another kid, what do? I want to climb a tree and see the nearest town. There are goblins attacking you. There are arrows in the air. Why do you want to search for a town? I want to see if there's a town here.
Well, to be fair, I know some adults that still do that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So how long do those game sessions take? The same as a class, a regular class, I mean.
No, longer, because if it were like just 45 minutes until we start, it will already be over. They are an hour and a half long, 90 minutes.
Okay, that's enough for playing something. Do you know if that's if that kind of thing exists in other countries? I never heard about it. Well, not in school, at least.
I think there are some DMs who do this kind of activity in New York. I have, but they do it in hobby shops, not in schools. I haven't really researched about other countries, so I can't answer you responsibly, but I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, I really was surprised now because I had no idea about that. So I thought you were a writer or something. I didn't know that that was your job. Yeah, you're not just a writer. Yes. Well, usually when people are writers, they are translators or something like that for a living. So I
I also translated for some time.
So about your game preferences, what do you usually play? Not for the job, but for your own.
Right now, I'm running a Stargate campaign using the Edge of the Empire system, which we modified to be less epic and more, I guess, realistic. It's been a pretty long-running campaign. We had our 86th session last week. I think the cool thing about this campaign is players don't have individual characters. We have a roster of some 12 characters. Sometimes players add new characters, sometimes characters die. And each time there is a mission, each player chooses the character suitable for the mission instead of always focusing on the same character, kind of like the old XCOM game from the original games. Before that, I ran a very dark and depressing Ravenloft campaign. So I thought, let's take a break from the dark and depressing stuff and do something fun.
We usually stay in the depressive things.
Most of my games are pretty dark, yes. I mean, for adults, not for kids. I don't like to depress kids.
Yeah. Yeah, we normally
I
stay.
was born in the Soviet Union, so I have to depress people a little.
So you started with Dungeons and Dragons, as most people do, or not?
Yes. Specifically, I even remember the adventure. It was called Terrible Trouble in Tragedor.
I don't know that one.
Very few people do.
That was what? Dungeons and Dragons still, or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons?
I think it was advanced. Yeah, it was advanced because you could be like an elf fighter, and in the old days you could be either an elf or a fighter. Because being an elf was a class. What are you? I'm an elf. That's my profession. I elf for a living.
Yeah, I hate that. And dwarf being a class, starting that meal for a game, it doesn't make sense. What do you do? Yeah, I'm an elf.
That was one of the things that annoyed me. I almost didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. I bought it, Dungeons and Dragons, but then after a few months, I bought Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which was new at the time, and we started playing because there was that difference that makes some sense. Because and being an elf is not really a thing.
Well, maybe it is.
Actually, the first role-playing book I bought and didn't get as a gift was Shadowrun, 2nd edition, when they translated it to Hebrew. And it's an insanely complicated system. And we absolutely couldn't use it, but the world was just so awesome that we tried to run it. We failed miserably, but it was just a cool setting.
I never played Shadowrun, but people always talk about the rules being complex.
They're insanely complex.
Yeah, that it was a very large book also. So.
Also, Shadowrun has what we like to call the pizza problem, that some characters, they can engage in activities which don't involve the rest of the party. Like if you are a decker and you're hacking into a system, what the rest of the party does is go to order pizza because it's going to take like half an hour. It's just you and the game master, and the rest of the party has nothing to do. Or if you are like a wizard and you send your spirit to the astral realm, that's it. The rest of the party can, go watch a football game. And they don't really have a solution for that because everything takes so much time, so complicated. It's such an amazing setting. It's such an amazing world. It has such detailed rules, but everything is so complicated.
Yes, I heard about especially the hacker rules but those rules have always problems. Even in Cyberpunk 2020, which isn't that complicated, but it still has the same problem. It's a mini game. So it kind of excludes everybody else.
So when I ran Shadowrun for kids, I just used D&D rules, and for the hacking, I just did it like a mini dungeon crawl with 2 or 3 rooms, so it could be really fast.
Yeah, I hate hacking because of that. Hacking and hackers and wizards are the worst.
We really don't like magic also. So
yeah.
Even though when we started doing this Wretched Bastards game, we had to find an excuse to reduce magic to well, because that's we really don't like using it. It's also
it's another set of rules. Yeah.
Well, also because we prefer, for example, The Witcher and something that kind of fantasy, which is low magic and low fantasy
dark.
and dark.
That's cool.
Yes.
Like in Ravenloft, magic is also usually the exception rather than the rules. But I like it. I like both genres. You just need to make up your mind in advance.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
So, since Rats is already written and all that, do you have any plans for other role-playing games in the future?
I had a couple of ideas which are kind of cooking in my head. One of the ideas was to make a game about dogs. Last time I was in Moscow, I saw a huge amount of street dogs. And these dogs, like you can see, they have a really complicated society, and they have castes, and they have a hierarchy. And each dog has like a strategy of getting food. And you see the dogs which always follow policemen around, and they associate themselves with the police, and they try to help the police, and the policemen feed them. I saw a dog which lived in the entrance of the train station, and when someone tried to get in without buying a ticket, the dog would start biting at him. Barking at him. I saw dogs that hunted. I even saw dogs which ran a con. I saw it with my own eyes. The dogs would sit near a shawarma stand, and there was a small, cute dog that would come to a person. The person would bow down to look at the dog, and another dog would bark behind the person. Sometimes the person would get scared and drop his shawarma, and the dogs would eat it and run away. So I thought it could be a cool idea to have a game where players play dogs which have to survive the Moscow winter, which is a really harsh winter. And I guess right now it's not really good time to design anything set in Russia. It's not the most
Yeah,
popular time.
that's a problem.
So I think I'll wait with this a little bit. But truly, the life of dogs in Moscow is something which is fascinating to me. There are actually some really interesting research about it. And the Muscovites are like really defensive of their dogs. There was a time when the city hall wanted to exterminate the dog population in Moscow, and they got so many death threats. So many people threw bricks in their windows that they decided to leave the dogs alone. And one time, some crazy woman killed a street dog, and there is actually a statue to the dog. People erected a statue in his memory. His name was Machik. So it's something very unique, very interesting. And my other idea was basically to have a game in a world where whenever you dream something, it occurs. And when it just started, it basically destroyed the world because, of billions of people, someone must have dreamt of Godzilla or dreamt of a nuclear explosion. And now there's like a police force which has to police dreams so they don't cause any more damage. And you basically play policemen who need to solve crimes committed in or by dreams. I thought it could be a cool idea.
So you think in settings, not in mechanics?
Yeah,
When
I
you think about the game.
always first think of a setting, and then I choose mechanics. For the dream game, I'll probably just use a modified D20. I don't think it requires its own system. And for the dogs game, I'll use the same system as rats. I want them to be compatible.
You do know that then you have to do a game about cats. If you're gonna do rats and dogs, you need to do cats.
Someday.
Just saying. I think the cat is agreeing with me.
Yeah, that one seems.
Yeah, because if not, it's not fair. So cats will probably be the villains.
So how did
I don't
you
know,
get?
rats are pretty villainous.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
I said rats are pretty villainous.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they also are.
How did you get started into writing? I mean, fiction, not games.
I've always been writing stuff for as long as I can remember myself. And one time I just wrote a story and I showed it to my girlfriend. And she said, it's pretty good. You should submit it somewhere. And I submitted to a lot of places. Nobody published it. But I said, okay, in theory, I can write something which someone will publish. And just went on writing until someone did publish me. The same with role-playing games. My first 7 queries, no one wanted to publish them. And then when someone did say, okay, that looks like an interesting scenario, right? It was Dungeon Magazine in 2005. I was absolutely shocked because I got so used to getting rejections. You send a query, you get a rejection. You send a query, you get a rejection. It's not even disappointing. It's just part of your day. And then, someone answered me, okay, that looks cool. Write the scenario for us. I was like, what? I must have misread the mail. I must have confused something. And I read again. No, they actually want my scenario. Okay. And that was my first publication. And I also felt that, if I could publish something in Dungeon Magazine, I could also write fiction, which I did.
To me, it's well, writing a scenario, I can do that, at least in English. But a novel, I couldn't, obviously, because my level of English is not enough for that.
I didn't plan to write a novel. Like my first publication was a story collection. I kind of wrote a novel by accident. I didn't plan it to be a novel. I just started writing a story, got longer, and then it was over 80,000 words. Like, who am I kidding? It's a novel.
So what do you think? Short stories or novels? What do you prefer? Writing, I mean.
These days, novels, yeah, definitely. When I was younger, I preferred the short stories.
I think it's a bit easier, right?
It's shorter.
I think it depends on the people, but for me, it would be easier to write a short story than a novel. I couldn't write a novel, not even in Portuguese.
It's
Really.
definitely faster, but the thing about novel is you have to be less precise. In short story, you can't afford yourself a single unnecessary word. Your idea must be absolutely pure. And in a novel, you can just play with it a little. You don't have to be so precise. So I think in that way, writing a novel is actually simpler, because you don't have to be so focused. You don't have to be so pure in what you do.
Yeah, that's true. It's harder. Writing short stories is probably harder than people think it is. Writing a good short story.
A good short story, yes. It's very easy to write a short story. It's very hard to write a good short story.
Are you working on something right now?
Yes.
Fiction, of course.
Yes, I recently finished writing a novel. I haven't even decided how we'll call it. Probably A Difference of Height or Children of the Giant. It's set in Israel. It's about a bunch of Israeli kids who meet a giant at some point. One of the Nephilim. The Nephilim are like half angels, half humans. They were born when the children of God lusted after the daughters of Cain. And she's a really miserable giant. Nobody likes her. She lives with a tribe which ignores her. And the kids try to be nice with her, and they accidentally get her children kidnapped. So it's about 4 Jewish kids and 1 Bedouin girl who try to find this giant, get her children back because her tribe won't help her. And actually, at first, when they try to speak for her, she gets exiled from her tribe. So they need to help this poor giant who nobody else will help. And on the way, they uncover like this really insane conspiracy, which involves a lot of biblical archaeology and ufology and different kinds of secret societies and aliens, and which all revolves around these giants without the giants even being aware. It's really inspired by the works of Sitchin. I had this insane ancient alien theories inspired by what was the name of the book? It's fun. I really like this book, but I keep forgetting its name. Chariots of Fire, I think. The German guy who also wrote about ancient aliens. And there's also a lot of Jewish mythology in it, a lot of Arabic folklore. And it's also based on my experiences because the book is basically a lot of hiking, a lot of walking the hills, walking nature. So I try to take this atmosphere of having a long walk in summer and just bring it to life in the form of a novel.
Jewish mythology is usually comes up in horror things and that kind of. You haven't wrote any horror stuff?
Actually, one of my purposes is to take Jewish mythology out of horror because, like, the reason I wrote my first book is like whenever Israel or Jews are mentioned in literature, it's always in the context of some tragedy, some horror, some the Holocaust, wars, terrorism. Jews are only allowed to be, very sad, very tragic. And I got tired of it. I mean, I'm not against it. I think, you can tell some really interesting dark stories, but I want to do something which will be light, fun, colorful, energetic, lively, something which will be closer to high fantasy of the 80s and 90s, something, like Stranger Things, and not, something depressing and dark and horror. So there are some really dark stories in my story collection, but most aren't dark. And my novel isn't dark at all. It's a fun, light adventure full of discovery, full of wonder, full of meeting cool supernatural creatures, discovering cool secrets about the past. I purposefully didn't want to go in the direction of horror because it's been done so much already, and it's really not how I want people to see Israel and Jews, because we're not just about sad violin music and talking about this pogrom that happened in our village in 1895, and my grandfather lost his last cheese to the Cossacks. Just move away from it a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it probably works off because well, it requires someone with a sense of humor, right, to write about mythology, but in a light way.
The thing is, like, if you actually read the Bible or read the Talmud, it's not very dark. It's far less grim than, for example, Norse mythology. There are a lot of stories in the Bible which are, just drama. But because, the Jews had such a tragic history in the last 2,000 years, so people tend to focus on the dark parts. The mythology itself isn't very dark.
Are you a religious person or an atheist?
Neither that nor that. I'm secular, but I wouldn't call myself an atheist.
But you are interested in reading about religion, right?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, different from Southern European countries where most people are Christians, but they don't read the Bible.
Yeah, or there's Catholics, but they don't go to. We in Portugal we have something that is called a non-practicing Catholic. That means, oh yes, I got baptized. Oh, I believe in God. Do you go to church? No, please, I've got better stuff to do. It's very silly.
Low intensity Catholics.
Exactly. Yeah. Just in case, just in case I don't want to go to hell. So yes, I believe in God.
I think some people don't even
hedging
think
your
about
bets.
It. Yeah. Well, we are. Not everybody is like that, I think, but
yes.
most people are, I think.
Most people here are like that. They're like, so I've never heard that other country having this expression, non-practicing Jew or non-practicing Muslim or non-practicing Catholic. It sounds a bit silly for me. I know at least that Spanishes don't have it, or other Catholic countries they don't, or they are religious or they're not religious.
Well, the thing is, you can look at religion as something you practice. You can also look at it as part of your identity. So you can have someone who is absolutely atheistic, but because he comes from a Catholic background, that is part of his identity. Like if you look at the history of, for example, countries like Yugoslavia, a lot of people, even if they aren't personally religious, they very much identify with their group. And with Jews, it's even more, sorry, Kat. It's even more complicated because Jews are also an ethnic group. It's an ethno-religious group. It's something which is very common in Asia, but rare in Europe. So, like even in Israel, we have another group which is called the Druze. The Druze, they started as a religion, but because they only married people within the religion, they aren't allowed to marry outside the religion. In time, they became an ethnic group, an ethno-religious group. Or you can have the Sikhs in India. So Jews are kind of the same. You can convert to Judaism, but the vast majority of Jews were born into it. So you can be completely non-practicing, completely non-religious, but you say, I belong to the Jewish nation. I belong to the Jewish race.
Exactly. So it's the culture. It's not just a religious thing.
Yes. So saying that someone is a non-practicing Jew does make sense, and it's actually very common.
Yeah. What else?
I want to go back to the rats because I want to know. So
Okay,
are
the
the
rats.
rats
Yeah,
like?
you didn't
Yeah,
talk much
are
about
the
the rats.
rats like? I'm gonna make stupid questions about the rats now. So are the rats, like normal rats, or since they are mutant rats, they are like? I don't remember what was the name of the master of the mutant ninja turtles.
E- Ah,
Splinter.
Splinter, yes.
Well, the game has over 1,200 mutations. So you can get bigger and look like Splinter, but the majority of rats are normal sized, but they have some kind of different stuff like a third eye, they can spit acid, they can have wings, they can grow flowers which hypnotize people. There are so many different mutations. But usually they're the size of normal rats, and most of them can also pass as normal rats, unless they get up on their hind feet and start dancing and singing. They do look like rats.
That's funny. Yeah, I can imagine rats, trying to go run around and take over the world. So I just want to picture real normal rats.
But many of them do look completely like normal rats. The prophet himself, he looked like a normal rat, except he would walk around in a cloak.
You mentioned
Made from toilet paper, I guess, or a napkin.
you mentioned before something about the art. With the author of the art for that game.
I work with two artists. One of them is an award-winning animator named Stav Levy. And the other is Jan Kleinman. They're both Israeli. They're both people I know in real life. And when I just started working about the game, I didn't even think about the art. I just talk to everyone about this game if they want to listen or not, because that was like my obsession at the time. So they just really liked it and started drawing in very different styles, but I think they complement each other. I can send you some pictures later if you want to edit them into the interview.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Can you do that?
Yeah, I think in
Okay.
in video editing I can put it somewhere.
Excellent. So magic.
There was a popular game about mutated animals recently. Well, the game still exists, but I think it's
Yes,
not.
Mutant Year Zero.
Yeah, Mutant Year Zero. Did you play that?
I read like a description of the game. I didn't really play it.
Yeah, it was very popular.
I've also seen a German red game called, I think, Ratten. But like honestly, I started working on my game before that game came out. I was kind of bummed when it came out because the premises are very similar. But in the German game, I don't really know German, but based from what I could deduce, you just play normal rats who try to protect their home. And in my game, like the rats are really advanced. They have technology, they have cultures, they have a society. So I think it's different enough to work. My game is actually more similar to the episode of Love, Death, Robots, which came last month, Mason Rats, about a farmer who goes to war with rats, and every time they have a fight, the rats become more advanced. And they actually learn to adopt human technology and have stuff like office crossbows, which they make crossbows from office supplies, or they make war machines from remote control toy vehicles, stuff like that.
Okay, now something that we usually talk in our interviews, current role-playing fads, fashions. I don't know if you are very active on social media. I know you write frequently posts, but not usually they aren't about role-playing games. So I don't know if you are.
Are we going to talk about the role-playing Twitter dramas again?
Yeah, maybe he's on Twitter. I know. So.
I'm also on Facebook and
MeWe, yeah.
Yeah, and I was on G+ when there was such a thing. Like if there's a social network, I jump there.
Are you on Discord too?
Yeah, not very active, but yeah, I use Discord.
I don't really like it also. But so you are aware of all those outrages on Twitter, I suppose?
It's hard not to be.
It's hard not to be. Yeah, that's right. So how do you place yourself in this uh, situation right now when well, if you even place yourself there, because I don't know, I haven't seen you in all those outrages on Twitter, so I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, you were interrupted for a moment. Could you repeat the last phrase, please?
I was saying that I'm not sure if you are involved in those Twitter arguments, because I've never seen you there arguing with all those people who are always finding some outrage because orcs are racist, or because violence is wrong, or because whatever. There's always some.
Usually these outrages start by people who say, okay, so you play a game in your home, in the privacy of your own home, but the game which you play in your home doesn't reflect my values, and that's not okay. Or the other extreme is people who say, okay, so you published a new book, it's not the same as the old book, and that ruins, the old book. So I don't, on Twitter, the problem is not, if I write a tweet about Israeli history or about politics or something like that, I would get like 500 retweets, 1,500 likes, and a few hundred reactions. If I write a tweet about role-playing games, I get two comments, one of which is someone wishing that I drop dead. So people actually get more emotional about role-playing games than they get about actual wars in which people die. So yeah, I don't tweet about role-playing games most of the time. If I do, it's mostly jokes or just thoughts. I don't take part in these arguments. The first time I was on Twitter, like this is my second Twitter account, I was involved a lot in role-playing game community in Twitter, and it was absolutely disgusting. That's one of the reasons I stopped using Twitter. The most insane thing that has happened to me is that I wrote a long time ago a small scenario for Wizards. It was a choose your own adventure, where you played animals which need to defeat some poachers in their forest. You had a leopard, a rhino, a monkey, whatever. And someone accused me of sexism because none of the animals was female. And I said that in English, the animals are gender neutral. A leopard is an it. And people were angry because none of the animals was explicitly female. And said, I honestly don't care how this leopard pisses. It is not relevant to the scenario. These are animals. They can be boys, girls, whatever. But no, they were really, really angry. And there was also huge, huge scandal. It even reached IO9 back in the day. I was writing articles for Wizards, for the digital Dragon magazine, about working with kids. And in one of the articles, I mentioned that boys and girls have different preferences in games, based on my experience. And the mere implication that boys and girls are different got so many people mad. I got like hundreds of hate messages, very angry DMs. So they were like, if I ever meet you, I'll punch you in the face. And I like, but you won't meet me, so. But if I ever come to the United States, I'll be sure to visit you. I don't want to deprive you of this pleasure, but I live on the other side of the planet. Yeah, something tells me these people are far more brave in messages than they are face to face.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I come. I like when they say, "Come here, and I will knock your face out." And just okay, this is my address. You can come.
Because I said, okay, so if I ever come to Gen Con, I'm going to be with two good friends I have in the United States. One of them is a policeman from Texas. The other one is a former US Marine. So if you want to fight with these guys, and obviously you're a great martial artist because you are someone who never leaves his basement, eats Cheetos all the time, so must be in great physical shape. Let's do it. And I've been to an actual war. Have you been to an actual war? Yes, so like people were so petty, and they started this colossal fights over such small things. And there's also kind of people who they want to fight racism, which I guess is a good thing. But when they don't fight racism, they create racism so they can fight it. So they're like, orcs are coded to be black, they're green.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't get
from African culture?
how do they get or African people from orcs? They are racists.
Yes, because like in my imagination, Warhammer orcs are like London, East London chaps. Orcs are like it's some kind of shamanistic culture, like Mongols or maybe something Native American. Before they were corrupted, they were more like Native Americans. Then they became more like Mongols. D&D orcs are like these Stone Age barbaric cultures. Like, how do you see their black people? Like, it's insane. Because like Africans do have a culture, they do have a mythology, they do have very rich culture, very diverse cultures, and you completely ignore it. Like someone is a thug, therefore he's a black person. It's a terrible way to look at life.
I get upset with the Matt is racist. Did you hear that theory that math is racist? Racist because why? Because black people are not good at math. Why are you assuming? Yes, punctuality is racist. They assume the worst things about black people, and then they accuse other people from being racist.
Yes, like the old American joke. When you're pointing at someone, one finger points at them, three fingers point at you.
It's all ridiculous when it comes to role-playing games, because they want they demand all those inclusion. You look at the covers of the games now, and there's at least 2 black characters and 1 Asian, and always females on the front, and then there's a blonde guy on the back. That is the secondary.
And the funny thing is that they never think about consistency, about making a consistent setting. So, if you have a world which has different kinds of people, it's amazing. Our world has different kinds of people. Like my novel has very diverse people, because if you walk down the street in Tel Aviv, you see diverse people. It makes sense. Like when I pass through checkpoints, usually the security guards at the checkpoint will be black women. I don't know why, but most. So that's realistic. That's how life works. And I had a student last year who was Chinese. Before that, I had a student who was Native American. So it's okay. Diversity does exist, and if you don't represent it, you're being dishonest. But if you have like this very primitive, medieval, low mobility world, and you have a village which is very diverse, how does it work? Are these people so racist that they never marry each other? Because how can you have a community with 100 people, which was isolated for hundreds of years, but you have representatives of all human races? How is it biologically possible? Or in like the Witcher series, every time you saw a group of people, there was like 1 black person standing to the side, not talking, not being a character, just standing to the side. So you can say, you see, we have this 1 black person.
I hated the Witcher. I like the books, and I like the Witcher, the games. Witcher 3, not that much, but I hated the series. And that's why are everybody, they are black or they are Indian. I don't mind that they are black, but doesn't make sense on the Witcher universe.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, there are black people in this universe, and you can show them. For example, the dragon, who has like bodyguards from some foreign country, and they're exotic. And that makes sense, because it's like this Slavic village. Everywhere there is white, and they see like black people. Oh wow, that's amazing! They're foreigners, and that really works. But if every Slavic village has its own black people, and they're also amazed at seeing foreign black people, why? It's no longer exotic. It's no longer foreign. You look like that. So what are you amazed about? So it's not even logical within the setting. So that's what I dislike. I love diversity. I like seeing different people, but it has to make sense within the setting which you create.
And they have to have a good character story. You cannot just put, and this is for Star Wars and all those complaints. I didn't watch Obi-Wan. I gave up on the Star Wars a long time ago. But you cannot do a shitty TV show, and then when people say they don't like it, you call them racists. No, you can have diversity, but you have to have good characters.
It's very convenient.
They did something very interesting with Obi-Wan. They accused the fans of racism before the show started, before there were bad reviews, just in case.
Yeah, just you guys are racist, so we know the show is going to be bad. And everybody was saying, everybody, I never remember his name. Everybody liked, what was the guy from, we were talking about it the other day, from the Lando. So nobody, people like Lando. Nobody, yes, Carl Rizian. Everybody knows that Darth Vader was. I'm awful with names today.
That's just his voice.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But everybody knows. So nobody cared about Samuel L. Jackson being a Jedi. So it's not about racism. It's people want good stories.
Yeah, one of the things they do is they like to ascribe themselves credits which they don't deserve. So like, we have the first, horror film with a black main character. We have the first fantasy film with a black main character. We have the first comic with a black lead, and like Black Panther, which was a great movie. I loved it, but it wasn't the first movie with a black character. You had for that Blade. You had before that Spawn, and if you go back far enough, the Night of the Living Dead, which is like a 70-year-old movie. The lead was an educated black man who fought zombies. It was a black and white movie.
And in the end, he gets killed because they think he's a zombie. And I love that.
Or if you take the Haunting of Hill House, the original movie, one of the main characters was a lesbian, and she was mistreated. Like there was a part where the protagonist tells her, there are things which are against nature, like you. And they completely ignore the history, they completely ignore the past, and they just say, okay, we have the first lesbian character, which is a lie. They want to get a pat on the back for something which they don't deserve.
A lot of people also don't know the history of, in this case, cinema.
But you don't even have to go that. You don't even have to go that far, because I remember when the Wonder Woman came out. Finally a strong character. What about Ripley from Alien and Terminator? And you don't have to go that long. They totally ignore.
80s and 90s, there were there are always.
If you want to go really far back, you could say Anat, the sister of Baal. She's a strong female. It's always existed.
Yeah.
I have in the Bible, you have Deborah and Yael. So, I dislike the dishonesty here.
And it's always based on dishonesty. Have you played the 5th edition, or are you playing 5th edition?
I am, yes, I am. I only bought the player's handbook because all their adventures look like rubbish to me. But the system, in my opinion, is a very good system. I know, many old school gamers will be mad, but I think it's really good. It's really good to play for kids because there isn't a lot of math. I really like the mechanic of having advantages and disadvantages, because in the 3rd edition, you have a +2 from that, a +3 from that, a +5 from that, a +4 from that, and every time you have to roll attack, it's like solving a math problem, which is cool for grown-up players. You can really have interesting builds. But if you play with 3rd graders, they can do it, but it's still a little complicated for them, and they don't really enjoy it. But if you can, you have an advantage, roll 2 dice, keep the better dice. They instantly understand. It's very intuitive. And another thing I really like about the 5th edition is that all the characters have several options. Not like, I'm a fighter, so I'm just gonna beat the guy. What do you do in your turn? What do you think I do? I punch you. So yeah, I quite like it, to be honest.
Including that those new editions of Ravenloft and those old.
No, I didn't even read the descriptions. I bought the player's handbook, and I personally have some pretty bad experience with Wizards of the Coast, so I absolutely don't trust them in that regard. But it's not like I'm angry these things come out, because I have the real Ravenloft.
Yeah.
So if someone takes Ravenloft and completely turns it to something hideous and obviously politically motivated and nonsensical, I'm just not gonna buy it. I'm not gonna rant about it.
Yeah, there's
That's why I don't post about it.
Mhm,
a lot
mhm.
of people have that attitude that they want to still buy things, but then they get annoyed because they bought it and then
Yeah, they just
playing
don't
it.
buy it. Stop giving them
Yeah.
money.
I
Yeah,
think it's the
that's my philosophy. Like also about Star Wars, I don't like the direction in which Star Wars is going, so I stopped watching it. I didn't like send death threats to the company. It's like some people like it, and they enjoy it. More power to them. I don't enjoy it, but it's cool. It's not $100 bill. It's not like everyone is gonna love it. I'm sure some people don't like the stuff I write, and it's cool. They have
Yeah,
perfect right to do it.
I gave up on Star Wars, on the Phantom Menace. I saw that and
yeah.
was like, no, I'm not gonna see anymore. But
I
I did,
saw that
Oh wow,
trilogy, but
that's a long time ago.
yeah,
yeah,
a long time ago.
I did end up seeing the other two, but it was like, nah.
I don't even remember, but I saw them. I saw the three fifth movies, but I can't remember the story of those of the other two. The first one I still remember it, but the other I don't really.
Actually, I have to confess I quite like the prequels, not the Phantom Menace, the other two, because it had like a very interesting conspiracy, and it finally moved from the idea of space Nazis to something much more complex. So I really like the conspiracy the chancellor had, going along, all the different players, all the politics. I love politics. But honestly, I like the prequels more than I like the original movies. So maybe, I'm not really the target audience of Star Wars. Maybe I like the prequels because I'm the kind of person who doesn't like Star Wars. So, when
Yeah.
they made movies which weren't really Star Wars, that's why I like them.
Yeah, but it would be normal that at different times in your life you would like different things. I think that is normal. So I don't like the things that I liked when I was a kid. I can still like some of them, but in a nostalgic way. So when we grow up, you
Yeah,
also
well,
start liking different things.
the timeline for the prequels is a more nuanced story, so I can see why you prefer those ones. I like the other ones when I saw them as a kid because, well, it's black and white and the good guys versus the bad guys. I don't like it anymore. I can say
Yeah.
I'm a Star Wars fan. No, I'm not. I liked that back then. I don't like it now.
I was never really a Star Wars fan. I thought the movies were okay. I never really loved Star Wars. I didn't grow up on Star Wars. My main interaction with Star Wars was, the role-playing game, which I just love the system so much. I really love the mechanics. So we used the Star Wars setting not because we thought it was such an amazing setting, but because the system was so great.
Hmm.
And when you run a role-playing game, you can really, turn the world into what you want it to be. Like the Star Wars game I ran with my friends some years ago, it was really about trade. They played traders. It was really more Traveler with a Star Wars skin
Hmm.
than it was a real Star Wars story. It's good versus evil. Empire, Rebels, Republic, whatever. That played a really small part in the story.
Yeah, I play the West End games also, and we mostly use well, it was a space opera, not really related to all that Star Wars mythology, of course. Uh, I never well, Traveler. I played just a little bit.
Traveler has a problem. It's so fun to generate characters that you just end up spending the whole evening generating characters, and then
Yeah,
you don't play the game.
we had
Yeah,
that experience when we played. Although I didn't die on Character Generation, yes, but Miguel did, and the other player wanted to do a scout, so we keep dying. And then now we're going to play. Oh, that's not as fun. Yeah.
yeah, we did a lot of that.
Yes, same here. Like, and the thing is, like, you keep rolling and rolling because you actually, you follow this person's life. And the first time I tried to play Traveler, they just, added more and more years. And at some point, okay, my character is 65 years old. He lived a rich, fulfilling, very interesting, very exciting life, and now he retires.
But that's a good thing I like about Traveler is that you don't have to start as a young character. I don't
Yeah.
like playing young characters. I have a problem with that. Well, there was a time when I had to play older characters and than my real age. Right now I can't do that because I'm getting old, so I can. But I still don't want to play kids. At least a 30-year-old character, that's 30 something. I don't like to play kids, and I never liked it.
I guess it really depends on the genre because
Yeah.
there was a very cool setting which came some years ago. It was based on the fairy tales of the Grimm brothers. It's about children from the real world getting sucked into the world of fairy tales, and it's really horrible. It's not at all the way we tell it. It's like it starts the fairy tale, turns into horror, and the characters there, they're all like archetypes. You have the schoolyard bully, you have the dreamer, you have the normal kid, you have the outsider, you have the goth. So in a setting like that, it's really fun to play children. But I agree that like in high fantasy, it doesn't make sense because a kid can be very smart, very energetic, but they're small. It doesn't make sense for a 12-year-old fighter to win an orc, which weighs like 4 times more. It's just physically impossible.
Yeah, it seems a bit weird. Unless you're playing just fantasy in a childish way, of course. In a realistic way, that makes no sense.
Although I can tell you that children don't like to play children. Children want to play, at least teenagers. They don't want to be kids in the game.
That's when we played. I remember when I was a kid and when I played, we always wanted to play. We always wanted to pretend that we were older than what we actually were.
Yeah, that makes sense. People want to do things
kids don't go on
when they are small.
Not that much.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Also, the whole idea of role-playing game is playing a role, is being someone who you are not. And I always tell kids, don't be afraid to experiment. Try to play someone who is a very different person from you. And it's cool. You don't have to be yourself in a game. Try to be someone else.
I think that's also something that is not happening right now. The new players, they want to play themselves, right? Something like a version of themselves, but they are very obsessed about the.
I see people posting about it on Twitter, but in my experience, like the people I play with, both children and grown-ups, and I also include games online. I haven't noticed, like it wasn't my personal experience.
No, I've never seen
people on Twitter don't really want to play. They just
I'm thinking about not really the role players, but people who like to talk about role playing. Probably they are watching all those shows on YouTube, and they consider themselves role players, but they rarely play. They talk about it mostly.
Like last time I was actually a player, I played an Iranian spy, which is something which I'm definitely not. Really, I swear I'm not. But it was really cool, to see the world from this very different perspective.
So you rarely play, also.
I unfortunately get to play quite rarely because my friends are lazy.
Yeah, I have that problem also. Usually I'm the game master.
Yeah, same here.
Lately I tried convincing people. Lately I tried convincing people to do some game mastering, so we can.
What I do is the Stargate campaign, like every world is kind of separate. So sometimes I tell, okay, I'm tired of DMing. One of you has to run the next world, and I will be the player, and then we will return to the normal campaign.
Well, that's. But you must have someone who really doesn't mind being a game master. There are people who can't, really don't want to. Not just because they are lazy, but they really don't want to be in that role.
They can. They're even pretty good at it. They just they prefer me to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a professional game master, so they want.
Yeah, that's true. You're a professional. You must be good at that. They are paying you for being a game master.
I hope so.
Okay, so I think. Do you have any more questions?
No.
Questions?
You can ask questions also if you want. Okay,
now,
so
let's keep the natural order of things, like Werner Herzog likes to say.
The interviewer doesn't ask questions. Do you want to mention anything else about your work that we failed to mention?
About my work, like in what context?
Whatever context you like.
Yeah. Anything at all? Novels or role playing?
Okay, so I want to connect the two because when I was working on my novel, Noblesse Oblige, the science fiction one, which is kind of like a cross between Dune, James Bond, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. the way I wrote it was very fun, and I think it can help some people who are struggling with fiction. So every time, what I did is like, I think of a role-playing scenario of some kind of challenge, and I would write it. And so, like for the first half, I would be DM, and the characters in the book would be the players. And then I would, switch my thinking and start thinking as a player, and try to get out of this scenario. And I didn't think about how to solve the scenario while designing it. And then as a player, I didn't really think about the consequences of solving it. So the book kind of grew organically from this approach of creating a problem, solving a problem, creating a problem, solving a problem. And writing the book felt like playing a role-playing game where I was both the DM and the player. And the idea of writing a novel at first seemed to me very monumental, very scary, which is why I didn't do it for a very long time. But this philosophy kind of helped me grow the novel organically. So I think maybe it can be helpful to other role players who want to write longer fiction to just view writing in that way. It's something I discovered, and it really helped me, and I hope it can help other people as well.
It's just an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my problems I realized that it's easier for me to write scenarios because I can come with an idea, but the ending is always hard. So if I'm writing a scenario, there's no ending. So I just create and I don't. That way I can write something without really having to finish it.
Yeah.
You can, but imagine that. But if you have players,
Yes.
it has to end some way, so that will help you end it. The players actually create an ending.
Exactly. When you play it, then you have the ending. So that is that makes sense. It's a good tip.
I've given up on writing fiction a long time ago, but I like playing. Well, not playing. Well, I like playing also, but that's not what I meant. I like writing for role-playing games. I think it's a. Well, I'm better at that.
We all enjoy different creative outlets, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it's everyone should specialize on what they are best instead of doing rubbish stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to arrange something later when you have your game to talk about, because right now there's no game yet, so we'll have to do another interview.
It will be my pleasure.
Yeah, we are doing less interviews right now because we are kind of busy, and also because there's a finite amount of people we can interview. Well, there are many people, but I don't want to interview people that I don't like, and whose games I'm not interested in playing.
Or who will instantly start screaming at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's also.
Well, they wouldn't even be
No, I don't
be
think so.
interviewed, so they would say, "No, I don't want anything to do with you. Go away."
If
Yeah,
you aren't
probably.
blocked at that moment, we can't even ask them because we are probably blocked.
Yeah.
Okay, Uri, thank you for coming to the Red Room, and
Thank you for having me.
have a nice weekend. It's
You too.
almost starting. Okay, see you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.